Okay, we are live talking about the woman that fell from Earth.
It's been 69 years since the last Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
Well, not really. It's more like been 18 months.
My thoughts on this episode are already kind of documented on my channel. They've changed. People can watch that whenever. So I guess you too, your thoughts are new to most people. What are they?
Disappointment.
Pretty much forever. It's just very generic to me, the whole thing. So, I mean, we'll get more into why I thought it was generic as we go through like the pieces of it, but overall, just very generic story, monster. The one highlight I do like is Jodie. She's awesome.
Just has this ugly yellowish look to it,
I
at
like,
least during all the nighttime stuff. Some of it is kind of hard to see,
yeah,
especially the bits on the train where it's poorly lit.
like it was shot like everyone keeps saying it's shot more like a movie and stuff, but it was shot like a very generic movie to me. Like cinematography didn't really stand out to me. Like when you watch like Heaven Sent, the cinematography really sticks out. This is like a generic cop movie almost.
Well, I
And
feel like what you're talking about, Edward, is just the fact that not a lot of Doctor Who episodes are set in a city or in like a populated area at night.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of just nighttime street lighting, which we don't get often in this show.
Kind of style of how it's lit and everything that I hate. I just do not like this visual style whatsoever.
Like I said, it has a more cinematic feel to it, but it also has a more generic feel to it. So it's not going to appeal to everyone.
Just because
Hmm.
it's cinematic doesn't mean it's good.
I don't really know what to say other than like I don't feel the same way you guys do in regards to being generic because like when you say generic, I feel like that has to be a bit more clarified.
Doesn't feel like there's any energy to the episode. It feels like everything is on autopilot.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be a different thing. I think because when I think generic, I think like just the same as everything else. And as far as Doctor Who episodes go, I feel like this was pretty unique in terms of like structure and, like I said, setting and also scale. One of the things that I didn't get the chance to bring up in my video that I really appreciate about this episode is how unique it feels next to the other series openers because this is the only series opener where it's not like the world or the universe or a whole city of people is at stake, and it's just I
And,
really like the conflict of this episode.
and
Oh,
Rose, the threats didn't really start threatening the whole world until the last 10 minutes, so.
yeah, but it's still like a global threat that's happening. It's like
Yeah.
just because the characters don't know about it until the end, it's still a wide scale issue. Comes
So,
down to
Series 7, with them going on to an alien planet, I think that's the only time we had an series opener in New Doctor Who that wasn't on Earth.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was nice that they had like a lower scale thing. She just kind of wandered on to this thing.
Yeah, I like that the conflict of this episode is ultimately about saving one person. Like that's not something we do in Doctor Who episodes a lot.
Not everything has to be this big. Woo.
The villain isn't the most unique by Doctor Who standards, but we don't really do the Predator often in Doctor Who, and that's what this is. The thing with the Predator is that like they make a big deal out of game hunting humans, usually like strong humans. It's like it's a trophy or whatever. And I find it hilarious that this episode comes out the same day as a Cartoon Network thing called Crossover Nexus,
Mhm.
which is literally about this guy who brings over heroes from other worlds to hunt them down. So we do this and that, which are both just Predator, and they're better versions of the Predator than the Predator movie that just came out.
All right.
Oh, God.
When we're talking about generic, I'm not so much talking about like what's on Doctor Who itself. I am comparing it to other forms of like media. And have I seen this story before? Have I seen, and I'm doing it with Doctor Who a bit too, but I think I'm doing it with both. I've seen this kind of monster in other films and movies before. I've seen this kind of story before. I mean, that's what I'm getting at when I say generic. I've seen it before, maybe not on Doctor Who, but I've seen it a million times before in my life. So,
I have a tendency of like looking at episodes and being like, okay, is this something that I've seen on this show before?
yeah, but I don't do that. I compare what's on this show, and then I do what's on other media, and is this a unique idea? Are they doing something creative? That's how I gauge generic.
Lucy, you mentioned liking Jodie.
Yeah.
I also really like Jodie. Ed, did you feel any particular way about Jodie Whittaker that hasn't been mentioned yet?
It's just feels like David Tennant impression, which kind of made me feel, is this really all there is to the new Doctor? I mean, there's being influenced by something, and then there's kind of like almost borderline ripoff, which is how I felt about Jodie Whittaker's Doctor in this episode. Felt like a gender swapped David Tennant.
Just having watched a bunch of Tennant episodes, I didn't really get that kind of vibe.
She does remind me of Tennant in aspects, but I still think she is still her own Doctor.
She reminds me of Tennant when she gets mad. I'll say that. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's very much a case like Matt Smith or Capaldi, where they're very much their own thing, even though they have clear influence. Like, Smith is kind of doing Troughton, and Capaldi is kind of doing Hartnell and Pertwee, that kind of thing.
I mean, they all are the Doctor, so they're going to have some similarities. So I would give it more time before we flat out say she's a Tennant ripoff or anything like that, because, like I said, I think she has Tennant tendencies. No pun intended. But she still is her own Doctor.
Yeah, plus again, the first episodes for Doctors have a habit of not having them be quite fully formed yet. Like, Smith is the only one I feel like immediately he is the guy that he will be through the rest of his run on the show. With Capaldi, the guy he is in Deep Breath isn't really the character that he eventually settles into. Like, he's got bits of his Doctor figured out, but
With Pierre Capaldi, it seems like there was like a bit of reaction to how divisive his Doctor was in Series 8, so they kind of, Moffat had to like change some things in order to get more people on board with Pierre Capaldi, especially Doctor Who YouTubers. Didn't really like Pierre Capaldi until Series 9 started.
I'll say about Capaldi, they did well develop it. He did acknowledge that I am too cranky and I need to calm down a bit, but we'll get to that when we talk about his episodes.
And I also feel like David Tennant had that. I feel like it took 10 a while to really settle into his character. Like, they didn't do any kind of revamp with him the way that they did with 12.
At the end of each of David Tennant's seasons as the Doctor, what happens in the finale kind of like affects him. Like, when he first regenerated, he was all happy and excited for adventure, and then when he lost Rose, he was all a bit more moody. But then, after he got some perspective with Martha leaving him, he finally lightened up. Probably one of the few times in the history of Doctor Who where the alien was nearly impossible to understand without subtitles.
I'm gonna say that I don't have that thing you just mentioned, Edward. I understood the guy just fine.
I think it's a TV thing, because I've heard some people say they could not understand them all, and other people say they could understand them perfectly. So I think this is just a case-by-case thing with the television.
The main issue I had was I understood him having a voice filter when he had his mask on, but then when he took his mask off, it's the same filter, which means he's just starting to understand. I'm like, you don't have to alter someone's voice to have them sound like an alien. Whatever happened to just having people just sound like themselves with just having to have alien makeup on?
Yeah, but on the other hand, some people could say, like, why would every alien sound exactly like a human sounds when you could so easily make them sound different? I was going to say that the whole point of me bringing up the Tennant Capaldi Smith comparisons is that I don't think that Whittaker has what Tennant and Capaldi had to that same extent. I could be proven wrong, but I don't think we're gonna reach like the end of this series or the beginning of next series saying, oh, suddenly 13 turned into a different character than we thought we were getting with the Woman Who Fell to Earth. I think she and Chibnall both already have a fairly firm idea of who they want this Doctor to be, and it's good to feel that sense of confidence, I guess. We're even watching Deep Breath. Like, by the time Deep Breath finished, I was like, okay, but who is this guy? Like, I can tell you things about him, but I don't have like a solid identity for him like I had with 11 and 9. I feel like I have that with 13. routine already. Like, I know who this person is.
Yeah, I feel like there might be some small changes or something as it goes along, but I'm pretty sure we get the gist of what her doctor's going to be like.
Well, we already talked a little bit about Tim Shaw. I'm caught between calling him Tim Shaw, like the doctor calls him, because that's funny. His name is also Zim Shaw, and I just want to call him Zim like Invader Zim. So I'm caught at a crossroads.
I call him Evil Tooth Fairy.
That is pretty much what he is.
Pretty much.
How did you feel about the tooth thing? Because I know some people who, like me, thought that that was a genuinely disturbing, kind of creepy character choice. And I know some people who think that's just silly.
I'm going to fall on the silly side, but I understand why some people find it scary, because I remember watching a horror story show and somebody was like taking the skin and teeth of someone and made a mask out of it, and you can kind of look at it that way. But on the same hand, I don't know, there's something about taking teeth and shoving it in your face. This seems very impractical and a bit silly to me.
It's totally impractical. It's just like, there's no reason for you to do this other than just being a sadist.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I understand why a lot of people fall on the creepy side, but for me, I don't know, something about it just made me kind of laugh, and I can't help it.
It's just the image of a person putting teeth inside of their face. And that's so outlandish and not anything that any normal person would do. Either you're going to go, that's completely inhuman and that's weird and silly, or you're going to go, that's completely inhuman. What is wrong with this person? That's messed up.
This is one of those things people are either going to fall one side or the other. How did you feel about it, Edward?
I didn't really care since the episode lost me way before we got to that point.
So you're just like mutual about the whole thing.
Yes.
I will say, outside the teeth, the design and the idea of the character was generic to me. I've seen Predator before. I've seen the whole we have to have a trophy, let's hunt humans or something before. The design, I actually thought was Ice Warrior, like a redesign of the Ice Warrior, a little like a more generic design of him at first. I was like, yeah, this doesn't look that unique to me.
And he relates to ice in some way, so.
Odd. Like, did that seem like it matched the tone they were going for with him or not?
I don't think it's a matter of tone, it's just aesthetic.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's an alien. He comes from a planet that we will never see, and so we can't say, oh, they've got a whole unified look over there or whatever. But in the context of this episode of TV, it is a little bit weird where it's like the one other piece of technology that we see you have looks kind of weird and out of place, unless it's supposed to be like an organic thing.
Yeah, it might be a Wonderland. Like, it is like a mushroom or something.
I completely understand where people are coming from saying that he's a weak villain and that he's part of what makes this episode generic. I can see where that's coming from. My thing is just that I feel like Chibnall put more effort into this guy than I would have expected or would have thought was necessary. This is the common excuse where it's like, this isn't about this guy, it's about the heroes. So we've got 4, technically 5 main characters of this episode to set up. We've got a new doctor, we've got all these new companions. Even with an hour running time, you can completely justify, let's just focus on these guys and let's not characterize the villain or any of the side characters at all. So I like that we bothered to give this guy some interesting details. The tooth thing, it's just kind of a funny little odd thing. Like the term that I used in my own video was that Chibnall writes it so I can believe that these guys live and breathe outside of this episode. The tooth thing is not relevant to the plot of this episode. It's just something that makes me go, oh, okay, this guy actually comes from a real civilization that has real customs, and it's not just, we didn't just write someone to be the bad guy of this episode and nothing else. We wrote someone to be an actual alien with some nice little alien details that make you go, oh, okay, that's neato. I mean, it's just, I feel the same way about, like, his ego. I can't tell you where I've seen it before, but I have seen it before where it's like the guy who's a hunter who has such a big ego about the fact that he can hunt people down, but he doesn't really believe in himself, so he sets up all of these things to help him win. I can't tell you where else I've heard that. Maybe it's Skulker from Danny Phantom, I don't know. That's not the most original thing either, but that's another level of like, okay, we took time out to make Tim Shaw an actual character when another episode with this same premise could have just not done that and just had him be this faceless, characterless thing that has to be stopped.
Still doesn't interest me personally, though. Like I said, backstory and all this stuff. This is stuff I've seen before, so it's not going to really intrigue me all that much.
I will say, I think there is a bit of lazy writing with him. Like, he seems like a complete sadist, and he's just willing to kill people willy-nilly just for the fun of it. And I really like his first scene, actually. When he first shows up, it's the guy who was tracking him looking for his sister, and he's like, "Where's my sister?" And the first thing Tim Shaw says is, "Ask me again." It's like, "Where's my sister?" And it's like, "You'll never know." And he just kills him. He's just toying with this guy who he doesn't know for no other reason than he just is a sadist who likes screwing with people's emotions before he kills them for no reason. And then at the same time, once he meets the protagonist of the episode, he's like, try and stop me if you can. Like, I don't buy that he doesn't just kill the doctor and everyone else when he has the chance. That seems like a bit of plot armor to me.
Yeah, I would just see him actually killing them outright.
Like, you could make the argument that he wants a challenge. You could make the argument that he's not interested in killing anyone but his prey, but that goes against what we saw of him prior.
If he wanted a challenge, why would he bother going to hunt on Earth, a planet that is way, way super primitive in its technology?
I don't buy that he wants a challenge. He's one of those kind of people that only toys with people that he knows that can't fight back. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to fool around with the doctor like that. I will say there was a good moment when he was listening to that recording. It's like, I am special. Somebody wants me.
Yeah. You're talking about Carl.
Yeah.
Carl's another element of this episode that I like. It's just, again, he feels like a guy who exists outside of the confines of this episode. Like, he has issues. He has so many little details and little lines of dialogues and things he does where it's like, in the short amount of time that he has, this is a fully realized three-dimensional character. He's afraid of heights, but he's doing this job that requires him to be really high up because it's his dad's company, and he generally seems like kind of a pathetic guy, and you know, he kind of knows that about himself, so he has these self-esteem issues and he listens to these tapes. Yet at the same time, we don't do the easy thing that we could have done where he's just a complete coward. This guy seems very scared, naturally, and you kind of think that he's gonna be the guy who makes things difficult because everyone's trying to save him, but he can't really do anything right because he's such a screw-up and so scared. But even though he's scared, he's not a coward. Like, he says he has to psych himself up, like when he's climbing the thing. That's something that could get you killed. It would be completely understandable if he didn't want to do that, but he says, I am confident, I achieve my goals, and then he does it. And it's like, okay, can he jump from one crane to the other? And he's like, okay, he's clearly terrified out of his mind, but he's like, I'm gonna jump, and then he jumps. Or it's like, this guy is capable of doing things that I think his sort of character archetype would not normally do. And the episode doesn't like make a big deal out of it. This is a person who, even if he is scared, it's not like being cowardly is his character and that's it. There's more to him.
I think this goes away to the other people in the episode, the companions. General thoughts?
I don't know. I kind of want one of you two to go first because I'm just generally positive toward everyone in this episode.
I like that they have backstory and they have some character details and stuff. You know, like the one kid with like he has a bounce disorder and stuff. But I figured out why they didn't click with me. It's just they have no like actual personality and charm for me personally. There's no charisma with them, so. It's like, even though I know a lot about these people, I don't really care. Like, I know the backstory to a potted plant to me. So, I know that sounds mean, but that's just the way I felt about most of them. The one I did like, they killed off, so.
I literally just looked up the Wikipedia page, showed that I could remember their names. Yeah, it's just the one that I liked most was the mother, Grace, I think her name was, and then she killed her. They killed her off. They killed off the only character that I had any investment in, and I was like, well, now what?
I will say her death is maybe... I go back and forth on if I like how it's handled or not, because I really like everything we do afterward. I like the funeral, and I like the fact that... Like, I'll get into the positive side of this later, but I'm torn on her actual death scene was earned or not, I'm not really sure because on the one hand, it feels like they're playing into the people who've been watching the show for a long time and who have picked up on the pattern of like the really proactive people who seem like they and the doctor would get along the best and who are all gung ho about the adventure. Those are the ones who are most likely to die, and yet at the same time, I don't know, something feels like it's missing. It's like some element of build up to that is not quite there. When she falls, it feels like, oh, that's sudden, and
Yeah.
like death is sudden, and that's part of the tragedy, but like for the purposes of a TV episode, structurally something feels off, like
She
we're missing a beat in the script.
felt forced to me. Like, okay, she's going after this electric thing. Were they even in any danger from it, really? I couldn't tell for sure because it was like,
Yeah, that might be it. That might be what my problem is that at that point in the episode, the tentacle monster thing is kind of a non-factor.
Pointless to go after it. So, in a way, Grace died pointlessly.
And like I don't know if the episode meant for it to feel that way because we give her the line of like Ryan is in danger. Is he really, or does she just assume that because she's being overprotective? And it's just like I don't know, maybe it's a time constraint thing, but I could completely see a version of this episode where it's like she doesn't go up there and the doctor gets all of her stuff sorted out and everyone just kind of leaves that alone and nothing happens, and I should not be able to feel that way.
yeah. Like I said, it should have made it at the very least this thing was an actual threat. It's just kind of at the bottom, flinging around, not doing anything.
Yeah, we need more of a sense of what that thing is doing and what's at stake. I think that's really all my problem is.
I mean, some people might feel differently, but the last line that she gave made me cringe. One where she's like, "You have to live without me" or whatever, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh yeah, don't be scared. And he's like, scared of what? And he's like, without me. It's like, that makes sense, her talking to him,
yeah."
but something about it feels a bit strange.
This it feels too cheeseball. I think it actually pissed my mother off. She was like,
Eh,
"Wrote that." So
you know what? I think my problem with that is that it feels like we kind of rushed through it.
she already knows she's gonna die this fast. Like what? Like I
The
said, it was
death itself, I have serious reservations about.
That's just as ridiculous as Fireman being able to predict his death by knowing he shooting a web, he might miss the building and plummet.
I think this could have handled much better. And also, I will disagree. Well, I get what they're trying to do. I won't say I disagree. Like we should have a funeral. I do feel like that kind of makes the episode needlessly depressing. But
I disagree. I feel like that's just like the way that I want to describe this episode is that it's very, very sort of intimate and very human. And it's a real intimate moment where it's like another writer, like I feel like Moffat or RTD writing this episode might give you like a shot of people at a funeral and then immediately we're like at the wake or whatever and we're just kind of done with it. And it's like we take a second to acknowledge like, oh, this is sad, let's move on to the next thing. I don't need episodes of the show to always be rushing through things like that. Like, a person died, it's okay to feel depressed about that for a couple of minutes.
I feel like, like the first episode's supposed to get you pumped and energized. And
This episode did get me pumped and energized because of what happened afterward. And again, this is another one of those it's too early to judge things because clearly they made that story decision with an idea of like this is going to affect these characters down the road. So like Ryan and Graham are probably going to be affected by this death in future episodes.
yeah,
So we can't say, oh, why would you do this now? It's like clearly they did this now for a reason.
yeah. I was gonna say I understand why they did it because there's clearly going to be a dynamic of the kid and the grandfather trying to make some kind of connection there because they don't have a connection yet because he's just like, oh, new grandpa, I reject you because that cliche. Now the grandmother's not there, so it's kind of all he has. So they have to make a connection. I want to be more pumped. Like I know you were pumped, but for me, it just like already an episode that wasn't pumping me up very much, and then we have this depressing scene of a funeral of the only character that I like besides the doctor in the show. I was like,
I don't know. I just part of me like inherently respects after so long of this show not doing that we can just stop and breathe for a second and be like, okay, let's indulge in a feeling that's not like the most overdone melodrama. Because like when this show gets dramatic, it tends to be melodrama.
Soap opera.
Really heightened soapy emotions. This didn't feel like that. Like this feels like what you would expect from the guy who did Broadchurch, of where it's like, just people reacting to a sad situation the way that people would. So like the thing that does get me pumped is the cliffhanger. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the fact that we end on a cliffhanger like that or just the extent to which I like the rest of this episode, but I have not been like excited for new episodes of the show in a long time. This is still my favorite show, and I don't want to be one of those people who like jumps on the Moffat hate train, but like getting into his era, we got to a point where it's like, okay, next week's Doctor Who, all right, I can't wait for it. Here it's like I'm counting the seconds until the next episode. And part of that is, yes, because we end with everyone out in space. Just like
the Doctor having a face of oops.
I did like the ending. It was very intense. It's like, oh shit, how are they going to get out of this one? Like, wow.
Before we move on completely from Grace and her death, I can't tell if it's completely unintentional or a really dark joke or just kind of a clever little like subversion thing. The woman who fell to Earth could also be her.
Yeah.
If that was the point of the naming of the episode, then it's completely lost me.
That'd be a bit lame because the fall wasn't that far.
And it looked like a fall that she could have just survived. And it was just like, oh, we need something sad.
That's another one of those, like, you're used to seeing people fall on TV things. Where it's like falls that would not look like they would hurt or kill a person in real life probably would.
Yeah, but still, I guess you could say because she was older. Like, I don't know how old she was, but
especially since she landed on her back, like she might have landed on the back of her skull, and that would have been pretty bad.
There's a better way to get that across, and that I think was just onto poor direction.
I personally think that's onto not wanting, like, this is still a family show, and so we're trying to be tasteful about it.
Not really anything tasteful about death.
I mean, like, tasteful with the way it's shot, because, like, she lets go of the thing, and we cut to the little instrument that she was holding falling and hitting the ground. Like, the same way that Die Hard, when a person falls out of a building, like, you show them fall so that they're obscured by an object so that people don't see a big splotch of body hit the pavement.
Even then, with Die Hard, which you brought up of Hans Gruber, they did show Hans Gruber falling for a great distance using a stunt person sound effect of him hitting the ground.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they made a choice. I don't really feel a particular way about it.
My whole problem with this episode. I feel so little about it that I'm disappointed by it.
Yeah. What about the other companions? Let's briefly talk about them. The older man, I can't remember.
Graham, this is a guy who doesn't believe that aliens exist. He's the cautious, like, look before you leap one of the group. He's the one who's really concerned with, like, everyone's safety, that kind of thing.
I know that it's Doctor Who and that it kind of tends to reboot itself, but honestly, can't just have a show where the Earth gets massive invasions every year and still have people that are in denial about it.
Well, we can now because we still have the cracks. Like, the cracks are throughout all of time and space. They are officially our catch-all excuse for this problem.
Yes, the cracks were just taking things away, but once the Doctor rebooted the universe, he just set everything the way it was. So all those alien invasions, they happened. So to me, this is getting really silly at the 11th season. Like, we're in denial about it. Like, if everyone else was more, like, this is aliens, we know aliens exist, this is just one guy that's in denial, I could be a bit okay with it.
This is an episode like 11th Hour that's trying to be a jumping on point for people who aren't familiar with this show. And I think it does a good job at that. And the inherent problem with having a show like this, it's the comic book universe problem, where comic books do this all the time and you just kind of have to accept it and deal with it and move on. Where stuff keeps happening that is like a affecting the Earth or even just the country or one city in a way to where it's like, this is officially no longer like the Earth that we actually live in, but that's the Earth that we want to tell stories in, so we kind of just have to ignore it.
I get what
The-
you're saying, but I wish they wouldn't ignore it. It almost just feels like a cliche at this point in lazy writing. Like it's easier just to ignore it and then to actually acknowledge it.
That's true, but we gotta do it. We have no other option. Because if
I
we
mean, I don't think you have to do it.
No, I don't think you have to do it.
It's something that the writers do consciously.
Yeah, because they feel like they have to, because the alternative is we pay attention to every little bit of continuity that's happened over, if not the past 13 years, in the past.
Or one small little cliche, which just take that cliche, put it in a box, and live without it.
But, like, you have to think of it on the level of, like, we have people acknowledge that aliens are real, including, like, these people who aren't in any kind of special position, who just kind of are going about their business and living normal lives. Okay, so everyone knows that aliens are a real thing. Which alien encounters happened? Which ones didn't? If
Let's not forget, Chris Chibnall wrote an episode in Series 7 where cubes appeared everywhere on the planet, and it turned out to be an alien force that then starts stopping people's hearts.
That's what I'm describing. We can't do that, and then the next time we visit contemporary Earth, it's still an Earth that we recognize. Like, this many alien invasions in, the setting of Earth as it exists in Doctor Who would be nothing like the real world Earth, and that defeats the purpose of even using Earth as a setting anymore.
I'm also tired of contemporary Earth.
But I will say it doesn't have to be a Pacific alien encounter or something. You could just say that in this Doctor Who universe, people are knowledgeable on some level that aliens exist in this universe.
Yeah,
But
and how? Like, okay, this is the same universe where Torchwood Children of Earth happened, where we establish that humanity discovering aliens caused people to, like, commit suicide en masse because it invalidated their religions. We have to pick and choose. We can't just say,
You could just try to work around it, and if you want to have someone that's an alien denier, then go into the past before Earth started having regular alien invasion.
or they could just ignore it, which is what they chose to do. So I
And
think,
it's lazy.
yeah, it is, but I think we as an audience just have to put up with it because that's been this show's MO for the longest time.
yeah, it's just really lazy and just people.
I have no problems with it.
That's fine with you, but like I said, to me, it's just lazy. It's like let's not acknowledge anything that happens in the past. Might as well just have like say this is a reboot when you do that. Like,
What we do say about it whenever we do a new Doctor, pretty much.
yeah, I wouldn't mind that, but they still try to have it both ways. Like, is it a reboot or is it
This is a show where you can have it both ways. Like, if we come to Earth again and people do know that aliens are a thing, I'm not going to have a problem with it. Like, that's something that this show has a unique privilege to do, is be like, whatever, man, we're doing what works best for this story.
I would like to see a showrunner tackle it. I would like to see a showrunner actually just acknowledge that people know aliens, pick or choose what ones or what this universe you want to make, and just to see how it goes.
Well, that's pretty much what the Russell T Davies era tried to do, right? Where it got caught in the trap of, like, it tried to have its cake and eat it too, where it said that people remembered all of the alien invasions, and yet it only seemed to affect things superficially. Ghosts are back. All of your loved ones are back in the form of ghosts. How is that going to affect human society? Not all that much, really. We're just going to put a whole bunch of ghosts in commercials.
I don't think we're getting it with this showrunner, but maybe down in the future, I would be really curious to see a showrunner actually just tackle it. Getting back to this episode on track, I guess just briefly talk about the other two companions.
Yes.
And I have nothing to say about her.
Neither do I.
Personality traits besides I'm a cop.
I want to do more than settle parking disputes.
Yeah, he's probably the most interesting out of three of them. Like with the grandfather, personality-wise, he did nothing for me.
I feel like of the four of them, three of them, however you want to put it, I feel like Ryan has the most interesting potential in regards to the disability, him losing mom and losing his grandmother. But I also feel like his attitude is like the least established. Like talking about, I know who these people are. I kind of know him as a guy the least. Like I can tell you about Yaz and that she's kind of down to earth and practical and is the one who kind of wants to keep everyone focused, whereas Graham is the one who's sort of concerned with safety and not wanting. He's the least adventurous. Grace is the most adventurous. She's the proactive one, the one who's just kind of everyone's den mother, I guess, but also is just into the action. I don't know. I really like Yaz. Ryan, I also like him, but I feel like I'm gonna need a little bit more time before I can pin down like what he's about, just like attitude wise.
Like I said, there doesn't seem to be any like personality characteristics yet. As far as, like I said, the three of them, they just lack charm and charisma for me. There's a lot of one-off characters that I felt that have more charm and charisma than these guys. So I don't know, maybe it will develop over time, I'm hoping, but as far as now, it's just they're kind of just there.
There's too many companions. Yes, the Doctor Who did start out with 3 companions, but after that original group split up, we never got to 3 companions traveling with the Doctor for nearly 20 years. Because when you have that many characters, you have even less room in time to develop them evenly.
Well, I disagree that we can't have like this many characters, but maybe we just can just trickle them in.
I've never had that problem. I've always enjoyed like dynamics of 3 companions or more.
I actually enjoyed that too. Like that's why I like the Pawn era more, because you had Amy and Rory and you had like River in like over half the episodes, so there was lots of.
Yeah, but the thing with that was that River only showed up occasionally and she stood out more, so.
I would like them to be like, we brought Amy first and then we brought Rory. And then, like I said, River's like in half of each of this Pawn season. They developed her even before we met the Pawn. So, like I said, we established these characters' personalities, and we do kind of here. But, like I said, they just lack charm, pizzazz, or whatever you want to call it. This is just, just 3 boring, generic people that I can find anywhere.
I feel the exact opposite, but okay.
We're just gonna leave it there.
This series discussion is going to be interesting.
Yes, it will be.
If I end up having this same feeling throughout the entire series, then I'm just officially done with future Doctor Who till the next shower, because I am not going to slog for another era not liking it again.
I'm hoping next week will give me some wow factor. And like I said, hoping the companions give me some charisma and get me excited about them, because as of now, they are potted plants to me. I'm sorry, Nick. I'm sorry.
The way that I'm thinking about it is just that I can see where you're coming from in the sense that they're not big personalities, the way that Amy and eventually Clara or Rose, because Rose, like our whole thing with Rose is that before she meets the Doctor, she's kind of a generic teen girl, but we do a thing with all of the companions, especially, I think, Rose and Amy and Donna, which is that we play up a lot of their sort of attitude, and I can't think of the right term, but they feel kind of overdone. I don't want to say overdone because it makes it sound like they're bad, which aside from Rose, they aren't.
It's like the writers actually put in the effort to have them be distinct.
It's not even just distinctive, though. It's like they feel like TV characters, which is fine because that's what they are. But that's not what these guys feel like, and I'm fine with that.
It's not even that. It's the actors were also able to add something to what was written on paper. I don't get that from the actors that play these companions. They all play it straight.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Like, even though I like Rose, I can't say Billy Piper did bring something to it. The actors here, they're not really bringing it for me.
You know what the word is? They don't feel glib. They don't feel like they're being written to be clever all the time, which is something that I do a lot with this show in the past, I think.
Like I said, it just feels like they're missing personality.
None of them come off as stiff like these new companions do. I mean, for some of them, I wouldn't be surprised if it was their first ever acting gig.
Wow, That's harsh.
Like, even though I didn't like Rose and Jackie, I can at least say that those characters really stood out for me. Like, they were memorable. They had personality. Might not be a personality I particularly enjoyed, but
I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job of making my case for this episode and these characters, but I really like these guys. That's all I can say.
The way I see it, best way to find out how much a character left an impression on someone is ask them to describe a character without describing what they did in the plot or what they looked like.
None of these guys are near my top companions, or I wouldn't compare them to Jack yet, but I really like the promise of like the three of them and what the Doctor might have with each of them. So I don't know, like looking forward to seeing more of them. I'm not writing any of them off.
no, not yet. I'm just saying, from my impression, they were just really boring. But we'll see.
There's a new composer, but nothing about that particularly stood out to me for this episode. So
The music just sounds like noise to me.
I will say something on a more positive note. I did like seeing Jodie build her little screwdriver. Came me around on the design and stuff. I actually like it now.
yeah, and I like the little gadget she built at the end to get her back to the TARDIS. I
Yeah.
really hope that Chibnall keeps doing that. Like, I hope he keeps playing to the science, like the Doctor as adventure science hero.
Or engineer.
Yeah.
I guess overall thoughts. I mean, like I said, I just found the episode just very generic and nothing really left much of an impression for me, except for a few minor incidents. Mainly with the Doctor, like I said, her building her screwdriver and her talking about her family at the end. That I like that, but anything else, I just felt like this was a story that mostly could have been written by anybody. Sadly, it's just missing personality and spark for me, which I'm hoping changes next week since they're off planet.
You already know how I feel about this episode. I put that across very clearly.
Okay, Nick, last thoughts.
I don't know. I kind of feel like the three of us watched two different episodes. I just kind of can see why you feel the way that you do, but I just don't know what to say other than that was not my viewing experience at all.
Like I left on your YouTube page, this is why it's called art. Everyone has a different take from it. So there you go.
That next episode is The Ghost Monument, and I have no clue what it's about, but I am excited for it in a way that I haven't been excited for a new episode of this show in a while. So let's get it on.
Okay, here we go. See you guys.
Bye.